Men out there, like the title says, smart men do not marry under any circumstance. It is the dumbest possible move you can make in 2024. Let me tell you why. Well, I'm going to ask you a question first. If you went skydiving, okay, and your instructor said to you, told you, hey, your parachute has a 50% chance of deploying, would you jump out of that airplane? Okay, I want you to ask that same question about getting married, because over 50% of marriages fail. First time marriages, second time marriage, it's like 83% failure rate. That statistic does not even include that 13% of those marriages that do make it are actually romantically like still happy. The other ones are sexless and miserable. Okay.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about something that's been buzzing around for a while. Why are so many modern men choosing to never get married? I mean, it's 2025 and the whole idea of marriage is kind of, changing, right? And a lot of guys, especially in their 20s and 30s, are saying nah to that classic walk down the aisle. But why? Is it because they're afraid of commitment, or is it something deeper? First, let's dive into some numbers to get a sense of what's actually going on. According to recent studies, the marriage rate in the US has been dropping steadily for decades. In 1970, about 70% of adults were married. Fast forward to 2020, and that number has dropped to about 50%. So yeah, fewer people are tying the knot. So with those numbers in mind, why is this happening? Let's break it down. To start, we need to address the issue of how we see relationships these days. A lot of people, men especially, are starting to rethink what commitment really means. Relationships aren't necessarily about getting married anymore. They're more about mutual respect, companionship, and figuring out what works for each person. A lot of guys feel like marriage just doesn't hold the same weight it once did. And I'm not talking about commitment or long-term relationships in general. Those are still important, but the whole institution of marriage, not so much. In fact, I've seen a ton of guys on TikTok sharing their reasons why they're skipping marriage entirely. Let's check out what some of them have to say.
Most men that's married don't even want to be married. Married men all the time, when I tell them I'm in a relationship, they be like, oh, don't rush it. Don't get married too soon. Make sure it's the right one. I be like, dog, you not happy that you got a wife? Like, you should be bragging about her. You should be telling me, like, yeah, dog, I'm trying to tell you, once you get married, man, it's going to be lit. It's going to be up. You're going to love it. It's going to be beautiful. But instead, it's like, y'all be almost trying to convince me not to get married.
3 reasons why modern men should not get married. Number 1 is that it is a high-risk, low-reward affair. Did you know that around 50% of the marriages end up in divorce, and over 80% of them are initiated by women? Number 2 is that many modern women are not even wife material. No offense to good women, but just like men, there are some women who should never become wives. There are just too many red flags. Many men cannot identify them, and even if they do, they ignore them. Number 3 is that many men have not done the work that is required to attract a good woman into their lives. They want a traditional woman who will do everything for them, but then they still want to play games. They still want to hang out at clubs. They simply don't have their stuff together and have not become the men that would be worthy of marrying a quality woman.
Yeah, I get that. A lot of guys feel like marriage is a risky financial move. It's no secret that marriage can be expensive. The average wedding in the US costs around $30,000, and when you factor in the costs of raising kids, owning a house, and just the general cost of life, the financial burden can be overwhelming. And for a lot of guys, it's just not worth it, especially when they feel like they're doing okay without it. And it's not just the wedding costs. Let's be real. The potential financial consequences of divorce can be scary too. Alimony, child support, division of assets. It's not something you want to go through if you don't have to. In fact, let's hear from another TikTok user about this whole financial thing.
I have a question for the men. Do you guys still want to get married? Like, is that still a thing?
No. A lot of men don't want to get married. And it's not because they don't like the thought of having a lifelong partner to be there for them when they need it. But a lot of men don't want to get married because they're avoiding potential divorce. In a lot of cases, divorce ruins a man's life. He has to completely start over. And in general, marriage doesn't benefit men a whole lot. So while a lot of men like the idea of having long-term relationships, it's just not worth it.
So I saw this trend on TikTok, and it was this girl saying, "Why don't men want to get married?" Men would stitch it. And all the reasons they gave were hunky-dory. All of them. But here's one thing, okay? If there's one thing I've learned in business, which you should treat your marriage like a business, aka get a prenuptial agreement, that's the least you could do, but never sign a contract with somebody who benefits from breaking that contract. If men had, or if there were laws in place that insured men financially, anything, like after the divorce, kind of like how women are insured, things would be a lot different.
Definitely a lot of guys echoing that sentiment. It's a huge reason why people hesitate to take the plunge into marriage. And honestly, I get it. And here's another factor that's really playing into this trend: changing gender roles. In the past, marriage was often seen as a way for men to settle down and build a family, but these days, the lines are way more blurred. Women are more independent, have their own careers, and are less reliant on marriage to secure financial stability or social status.
I won't cook.
That's fine, I'll do it myself.
If the place gets dirty, I'm not gonna clean.
That's fine, I'll do it myself.
I am empowered. I am not washing dishes.
That's fine, I'll do it myself.
Lastly, I don't want to pay any bills or for my personal expenses.
That's fine, I'll do it myself.
Hey, so when do you want to go on a date?
Date? What do I need you for?
Wait, but you're who I'm looking for. No!
And men, they're not necessarily feeling this pressure to find a wife or settle down in the same way. The traditional roles just aren't as rigid anymore. In fact, I came across a TikTok recently where a guy talks about how marriage just isn't as essential as it used to be.
Why do you think so many men nowadays are not getting married?
I really don't know. Times change, people change, the way they think change. I'm old school, so I find the woman that I like,
Or three.
and I stay with that. So
For some reason, my generation, a lot of young men aren't getting married. There's a lot of blame game. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it.
young kids these days, they got everything way too easy. When you have to fight for something, you want to go and get it. That's make you love somebody. If you got a somebody you just know and you got everything that you want in one night, you get it already. So you don't gonna fight for that person because you already got what you want.
Speaking of personal choice, freedom is another huge reason men are choosing not to get married. The freedom to do what you want when you want is something a lot of guys value deeply. I mean, think about it. If you're married, you're sharing your time, your finances, and your energy with someone else. For some guys, that's a lot of responsibility.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't get married. You're free, man. You're free in the world, so don't get married, please. Forget about population. It will grow automatically. Don't get married. Don't lose your freedom and individuality. And your pride, man. You're a man. You're always wanted. I'll tell you. You're always wanted. But once you got it, you're jailed.
And lastly, let's talk about evolving priorities. With things like career goals, travel, personal development, and even just the time to relax and enjoy life, marriage isn't necessarily the top priority anymore. Some guys are just more focused on building their own future before considering what someone else's future looks like alongside theirs. Look, no matter where you stand on this issue, the fact is that men today have more options and more freedom to choose their own path. Whether that's marriage or not, it's about figuring out what works best for you. So what does this all mean? Well, it doesn't mean marriage is dead or that guys don't want relationships anymore. It's just that the idea of marriage is changing. People are realizing that love, commitment, and companionship can exist in many different forms, and marriage is just one of them. At the end of the day, it's all about choice, right? Whether you're into the idea of marriage or not, it's up to you to decide what's best for your life. So what do you guys think? Are you pro-marriage or do you think it's overrated? Drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.